Welcome everybody to the next episode of the Cannabis Review. I'm delighted to be joined on this episode by Steve Néron. Steve has more than 3 decades experience in the pharmaceutical industry with demonstrated success in numerous therapeutic sectors. He is also the Chief Commercial Officer at the leading global cannabinoid research and development company, Tetra Pharma. How are you keeping today, Steve?
Good. Yourself, are you?
Fantastic, mate. Thank you very much for taking your time to do this. I know you're a very busy man, so hopefully we can bestow some knowledge onto the audience in this episode. Can you maybe give everybody a quick overview of how you ended up at Tetra Biopharma?
Yeah, well, my entire career, I spent it in the pharma industry. I mean, going from Aventis to sharing to Merck to Pfizer, Pfizer to Bosch Health. I mean, I've always been a pharma boy. And in 2018, I mean, there was restructure. Well, I mean, I was a hand raiser because big pharma was injecting a lot of constraint following Sox saga, Sarbanes-Oxley. So I've decided to move into biotech industry. And for me, Tetra was extremely appealing in the sense that we were looking into RX segment. I really believe that cannabinoid the receptor are definitely a very nice therapeutic target, and CB1, CB2 needs to be explored, and we know the active, right? So it's well characterized, and we know that it works. We simply need to develop evidence-based medicine. By evidence-based medicine, I mean efficacy in pain management, efficacy in other segment than being an antiemetic, like dronabinol, let's say.
Okay, very interesting. So the first topic I want to jump on to is cannabinoid-based drug discovery and development. Now, I know Tetra are a global leader in this area. Can you maybe give everybody a quick little overview of what is a cannabinoid-based drug and how long does a discovery and development process take?
Well, okay, a full DDP drug development plan may take 5 to 6 to 7 years, and that's a problem with our investors base. I mean, when they joined, I mean, they felt that we're an LP, but we're nowhere a licensed producer. So this takes time because you need to file, develop your non-clinical information, then you move into dose ranging, then you go into phase 1 on LT volunteers, whether it's toxic or not. You do dose ranging, and then you start demonstrating your efficacy. And we're up to phase 2 right now. The two studies that we're running are called Reborn and Plenitude. Reborn is head-to-head comparison against uh, quick efficacy morphine, things like oxycodone or hydromorphone or uh, extremely rapid morphine sulfate. So we don't want to displace them, but we want to be an add-on therapy by which this will lead to an opioid sparing effect. Because you know the crisis right now, the opioid crisis taking place in North America, and I think there's also consequences in Europe. So we just want to be a player amongst therapy so that doctor can reduce their doses. But it's a long process. It's 5 to 6 years, and by the time you file, it may be an additional year or two before you get approved. We have planned for EMA, we have planned for FDA, of course, and other regulatory bodies. Yeah.
Okay, very interesting. Can you explain to everybody just a quick little question? What is a biopharmaceutical company? What's the difference between that and a standard pharmaceutical company?
Well, biotech, of course, we have no appetite to run commercial operation, right? So you develop your drug, and once you're ready, you run BD activity, business development, and you sell the asset to a big pharma company in exchange of royalties plus upfront payment, which covers typically for the entire cost of your trial. Right now, I'll give you an example on Quick Sleeve, the asset we're working on. Um, well, we're up to 16 million investments so far. By the time we finish the complete DDP, sorry, drug development plan, this will be an additional 20 million. So it's not cheap. But you're going to attract interest from big pharma once you complete efficacy trial and you demonstrate efficacy. And this is what we're getting right now in Reborn. We're getting positive signal. The code is not broken yet, but we're getting really signal that this works. We always knew it's working, but we need simply evidence, right?
Okay, so in terms of we've got a 6 to 8 year period, you got around a 70 to 80 million dollar investment that's going to be required. But at the end of that phase, somebody's developed a blend and a formulation that can be turned into a pharmaceutical product that could be prescribed by a doctor, that could be sold en masse then by a company. So this is basically if you know what you're talking about in the industry, the center of the industry and the future of the industry, because I think the holy grail is going to have your own IP products that are basically go after cardiovascular disease, neuropathic pain, chronic pain, or post cancer chemo. It seems to be the center of the industry and which will dominate a huge chunk of the space over the next 10 to 20 years.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Imagine yourself, project yourself in the future. I mean, take your asthma pump. Those are dry powder inhaler or meter dose inhaler, just like a Ventolin or things like that. So, but give the label for pain. So eventually, once you don't achieve pain relief with Coxib or with an NSAID, then you move into second layer of therapy, which is Lyrica, Cymbalta. And if it doesn't work, then you probably be considered the third options on the top of these two therapies to achieve pain relief. So that's but I mean, by then, we're hope that our prospect, which is called COMS, synthetic THC CBD, will go into a pump, you will inhale it, and then you will treat your pain basically, whether it's cancer pain or neuropathic pain. Like nicely mentioned by you, you're right, likely that our chances are better into neuropathic pain than any type of pain. Yeah.
Okay, very interesting. And the difference between biosynthesizing the chosen molecule and just synthesizing the chosen molecule, is there much of a difference in the end result, end product, or is there a more scalable
S-
option between the two?
Synthetic is much more conducive for pharma. So I mean, the idea here is that you go to your typical pharmacy, you go pick up your prescriptions being prescribed by your doc, and then you recoup your prescription, and your pharmacare plan will cover it. That's the idea. So it's similar almost to medicinal cannabis, but there are no out-pocket costs for the patient. This will be supported and reimbursed by the government. That's the vision. Right now,
Okay.
the issue with LP is that there's too much offer to start with, and not only that, they cannot stabilize their gross margin because the price per gram keep going down. When I started in the business, it was $8 a gram. Now it's down to $2, if not 1.5 euro a gram. Us, we stabilize the gross margin by having proper IP. Like you mentioned, we have IP on QuickSleeve. We've been able to document the aerosol. So basically, you'll have, if you wanted to copy me or to genericize my compound, you need to exactly replicate the same aerosol, which is unlikely to happen, and I have 20 years protection.
Okay, incredible. So, in terms of that industry, do you think it's only initially now at the start where the race for IP and the race for the end product the consumer will use in 10 to 15 years has only just begun? Or is this a case that North American companies are 5 years, 10 years already into this?
Oh yeah, no. So we've been studying this for quite a while. We acquired Panag, and there's something like 2 decades of studying the molecule basically on any sorts of CBD receptor, whether it's CB1 or CB2. So our CSO, Melanie Kelly, she is quite advanced in studying CB1 and CB2 receptor. However, there's very few company. GW was sold to Jazz Pharma, Zynerba, InMed. Those are the company. We're not LP. Those are companies studying CB1, CB2 receptor religiously and making sure that we will produce a good drug asset or drug candidate that will yield a lot of benefits. I mean, pain management, we're talking about, sorry about this.
Yeah, okay,
We're,
no
we're,
worries.
we're, we're talking about $3 to $4 billion sales, global sales potential, if not more.
Okay,
So
so
it's not small business, right?
yeah, yeah. Well, that's it. If you look at, even I was researching the size of the chronic pain market around the world and the neuropathic pain, that those companies that can develop that end product, get it protected, have an exit strategy into the arms of one of the already established pharmaceutical companies to just either replace the current offering they have for their patients, or take it off the market. It seems like a very exciting space. Can you tell me the next topic I want?
Lyrica, as an example, Lyrica is selling for $4 billion US sales of per year, basically. Not only a global sales. Yeah, Pfizer is selling 4 billion. Last time I checked, was $4 billion sales for Lyrica, and Lyrica got genericized lately. So now they're no longer cashing in on Lyrica as much as they used to be. Yeah.
Okay, very interesting. Last topic before I let you go is clinical trials. Is there a specific term length for a clinical trial? So let's say you've got your molecules, you developed your end product, you now want to be able to bring it to market. I know you guys are just working not as a company, but clinical trials, how long do they take? And what's the kind of rough process for a company like yourself to go through them?
Well, it depends which label you're looking for, which indication you're looking for, right? It will be longer. Like in the case of pain management, the follow up may last 2 to 3 years. Why? Because to demonstrate your point, you need a large sample. We're talking about maybe 3 to 5,000 patients. So any big pain, because pain is a high prevalence. So high prevalence mean large sample. If it be rare disease, like I don't know, like our friends at GW did, Dravet and Gostat, I mean, it's a subsegment of epilepsy. It's extremely tiny. It's small. They demonstrate their efficacy in Dravet and Gostat, but this is a rare disease. This is the prevalence is extremely low. Then to produce a conclusive clinical trial in that segment, you don't need a large sample. I don't recall exactly how large was the sample for GW, but for us in pain management, it's quite large. So
Okay.
hence the reason the follow up is longer. So you got to select your indication in order to determine the time. But a good follow up would be 2 to 3 years. Yeah.
And who chooses the patients? Is it something that you specifically choose? Is there companies that you can go to that can provide the patients, or where does the actual trial pool come from?
Good question. You need to establish your eligibility criteria. In our case, like I mentioned to you, we don't want to displace morphine sulfate or opioid. We just want to be an add-on on the top of standard care, basically. So you and our patients who are already on numerous drug, and then on the top of that, you will add quick sleep or calms.
Okay. So, like sauce with your dinner, shall we call it, in simple terms?
Okay. Well, right now we're looking into breakthrough pain. We're looking into cancer pain. So if you're effective in cancer pain, likely that doctor will prescribe it in any type of pain.
Okay, very
But
interesting.
now you're getting into a zone where doctor will prescribe it off label. They're not supposed to. We will not promote it in off label situation. However, once you establish your drug in cancer pain, good for you, because likely that doctor will expand their usage in other pain management indication.
Very interesting. Last thing before I go, do you think the blends and formulations of specific products has got a lot of room still before people come up with the exact formulas that are going to work in various different disciplines? Or is it pretty much going to be, as you said, just a layer on top of current medical medicines that you're being given by your doctor? Is there somebody basically going to come up with a blend of terpenes, blend of cannabinoids, B vitamins, all together? They've done their R&D, and over a couple of years they perfected this one little tablet that does X.
Well, it's way more difficult to display standard care than playing the game of add-on. So
Yeah.
add-on, you limit your risk basically in injecting money like that. So eventually, guidelines may lead doctor to prefer cannabinoid-derived medicine above opioid. At this point, will be as effective as. So what do? You select your level, and of course the likelihood of developing an addiction under opioid is quite high, with very dark consequences. Aside from addiction, I mean, there's an escalation by which you may land on errands, or I mean things like that. So you don't want to go there. So doctor, and then the doctor will regroup, develop clinical guidelines, and they'll call the shot. They say these therapy are as effective as. Accordingly, they'll be second line, and we'll pay for second line. So if you fail on NSAID or Coxib, you may well deserve receiving a prescription of cannabinoid-derived medicine, which would be quick sleep. But then you will need clinical experience with the agent in order to displace opioid. So this is policy, really. This is
Yeah.
policy change. It requires solid evidence in order to displace the second line, let's say, or the third line.
Very interesting. It's definitely a sector of the industry to keep your eye on, and I'm very much looking forward to keeping up to date myself. Hopefully, we can get to chat again in about a year and see how far along you guys are towards getting products on the shelves. But thank you very much for your time, to Steve. It's very much appreciated. Anybody who wants to know more about Tetra Biopharma, highly recommend checking out their website and their social media sites. They're a company to watch for the future. So, Steve, thank you again.
Thanks a lot, man.
Until next
Okay.
episode.